Anybody else? Good morning. Today I'd like to share with you some ideas that I have been thinking about at this season. The idea isn't anything that is new. It's since the beginning of the universe itself. And that is that the word love is really a verb. It's an action. And it's something that we have to put into action in our own life. But deeply in my heart and mind, many years ago, when I started to study this teaching, it made an impact upon me because of the change in my realization of God. Not that God changed, but my understanding about God. From a being to a spirit, but a spirit that is love. And it made such a difference in my consciousness to the realization that when I am expressing love and experiencing love, I'm very close to God. And when I'm not, that means that God hasn't moved, I have. And so many times we have moved, many times that we find that there are experiences in our life that make, well, particularly some people, make it very difficult for us to love. It's almost as if God put them right there and says, okay, here's somebody now. Try it on this person. But you know, really you have to try it on yourself. And it's not easy what I'm sharing with you this morning. Albert Schweitzer wrote something that is magnificent. He says, the tragedy of life is what dies inside of us while we yet live. And it's a tragedy when we go through life alienating ourselves from the very principle that created us. I can't afford, I'm sharing with you this morning, I can't afford to hold animosity in my heart toward myself or to anyone else. Now this teaching is very simple, but extremely difficult to practice. Now no matter what my shortcomings may be, and no matter what yours may be, there's a love that is totally unconditional that doesn't judge us. Doesn't judge us. And if we could measure up this morning here, then Christmas becomes a reality. It becomes an experience in our life. And we could really turn within ourselves and realize that love doesn't make any demands upon us. But when we don't practice it, we shortchange ourselves. And the tragedy is that we should live life not with fear. We shouldn't live life with a division in consciousness. And so the beautiful being that we really are, that if we are created in the image and likeness of God, and we are, and God is love, then the makeup within us has to be that love. It can't be anything else. The challenge that you have and the challenge that I have is what Rollo May wrote many years ago. Rollo May wrote, the courage to love. The courage to love. And it takes a lot of courage many times to love yourself. Now, I didn't always love myself. There are times I liked myself. There are times I didn't like myself. This is not confession. But you have to hear it from me, because it's important that you realize that the most important step that we could take is to love ourselves. Now, I'll tell you why it's important. Because I can't love you until I love myself. And I can't love God until I love myself. So it brings it right down. I'm not talking about ego. I'm not talking about I like me, who do you like? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the courage that Rollo May says. The courage to look at myself, recognize my faults, recognize my shortcomings, and aware of my setbacks, and still have room to love myself and to want to grow, to want to learn, and to want to become stronger in life. Now this, to me, is what we teach. We teach this. Every single one of us here, at one time or another, including myself, were maybe disappointed in ourselves. Or maybe we were disappointed in others. Maybe we let ourselves down. Maybe others have let us down. But when you get back into the we teach, we're not teaching an icky, sticky, mushy principle. I mean, I love apple pie. That's not the love I'm talking about. I love apple pie with some ice cream and a little chocolate on top of that. Why not? I mean, why not? So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a principle that is not abstract and cold, but a principle that is so warm, and a principle that supports us and loves us regardless. Now, sometimes there are certain people we love, as long as they perform for us. You know, take out the trash, the honey-do list, you know, and whatever it might be. Now that's love. That's love because, you know, you're pleasing me. But when you stop pleasing me, I'm not going to love you. Or when you're raising a child, you want daddy to love you? If you want daddy to love you, you clean up your room. You don't clean up your room, that means daddy's not going to love you. That isn't love. Those are conditions. Those are conditions. Suppose God says to me, hey, walk a straight line and I love you. You miss a foot, forget it. No, I'm talking about a principle that regardless of what happens, loves us. Let's take this in a relationship. Every single one of us here today, we're in a relationship with ourselves. And we may be in a relationship with other people. Sometimes we put demands on a relationship that cannot be carried out. And we set ourselves up to be hurt. Can we here today say to ourselves, I love you regardless of what you do. I love you regardless of what you say. I love you. I love you regardless of how you live. That, to me, would be a big step. Now, most of us would say, I love you if you would stop doing this. And I'd love you if you would quit. You want to make me happy? I'll tell you what will make me happy. You can't do that. You can't do that. If we really believe in the principle, it is to love people in our experience as they are, where they are. That's the step that I learned in this teaching. Now, sure, I may see the capacity that people could do more, people could be better. I could see that capacity. But at the same time, I must also know that everyone moves at his and her own pace in life. And I thought today, at this wonderful, wonderful season that we have here, I wanted to express to you that the importance that I have found in my life in saying to myself, you know what, I'm going to tell you, I'm a lovable guy. And I like myself. Now there, I said it. And it's on tape. Now you... Now, and I accept myself. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement. I accept myself. Now, that to me is the step that we all need to take. And that is such an important issue in life, in a relationship, in the consciousness that no matter what we do. Because there is a tremendous feeling. I think it's important for us to know that if we hold anything within us against anyone else, we pay a very dear price within ourselves. Within ourselves. Some of us might say, well, how do you shake it off? I mean, I'm hurt. I'm hurt. Feeding the hurt isn't going to do any good. Rollo May, again I'm repeating, said, the courage to love. It takes courage. It takes courage to see the good in someone else. It takes courage to hold no ill thought against anyone. It takes courage to admit your shortcomings and your weakness. And it takes courage to practice the principle. It takes that courage. And that's what Rollo May is talking about. You know, if we're looking for Mr. Perfect or Miss Perfect, I want to tell you, forget it. There is no Miss Perfect. There is no Miss Perfect. I think the reason we're looking for a perfect mate in our experience is because we want someone in our experience to bring something into our experience that we don't have. And you can't do that. You can't do that. Maybe we see ourselves as not being perfect, but wouldn't we have the idea of a perfect mate? And then, I mean, live with somebody who's perfect. I got my point across. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. But love, with the understanding of love, it allows you to accept the imperfections within yourself and to accept the imperfections in others, and yet knowing that everybody is striving to take their imperfections and perfect them and make them better and make life more lovable and more giving in every manner. I shared this morning something that Elizabeth Barrett Browning did not have a strong physical body, and her father made her understand how frail and weak she was. This is a true story. And he told her enough of her weaknesses, and he told her enough of how frail her body was, and he told her enough how she has to be taking care of herself and how she should rest and everything, to the point where Elizabeth Barrett Browning became bedridden. Bedridden. Now, he did it out of love. He did it completely out of love. Honey, you know you can't carry this. Honey, you can't do it. Out of that love. But out of that love was smothering. And love can smother. Love could choke the life out of someone. To the point where Elizabeth Browning was confined to bed. Because she accepted this good intentions that was killing her. And she was a writer, a poet, wrote beautifully. But there was a man someplace else by the name of Robert Browning who read her works and fell in love with her works and traveled to see her. And he's told, well, we don't know whether she's strong enough to see you. You know, it depends if she's strong enough. And he said, well, I'm not going to take anything from her. I just want to thank her. And as he met her, he talked to her, and she talked to him. And he almost said, what are you doing in bed? Well, they love me so much. You know? But his love for her was so strong that Elizabeth Browning got out of bed, walked, became strong enough to even marry the guy, and lived happily ever after. But that's what love does. Now, it's almost like a two-sided way of talk, because I believe that a love that smothers gives a person, becomes an asthmatic. They're choking. You love me so much, you're killing me. And so there are conditional loves. And so we must realize that if we have been hurt here this morning, the heart that is injured sometimes will say, I'll never love again. That means you're denying the spirit that's within you. You're denying the power that's within you. Look around in this room right now. There are people you know and there are people you don't know. But what we must know that they are more than people that are here today. The people that are in front of you, next to you, and behind you, they're more than people. They're creations of God. That's what they're, creations of God. And the essence that's in them is love. And so today, let's have that courage to say to ourselves, I love you exactly as you are. God, that's a strong statement, isn't it? Now the other person may say that, you mean I don't have to change? That's entirely up to you. That's entirely up to you. I love you exactly as you are. Now that's what I'm practicing in my life. And I want to share with you, I think it's very important to know that I'm a valuable part of the universe. Again, that's not saying, see how great I am? No. I'm a valuable part of the universe. And I'll tell you why before I close. Because love gives you a feeling of self-acceptance. Genuine love that I'm talking about this morning gives you a feeling of a healthy self-worth that's within you. And when we could look at ourselves and say to ourselves, I love myself. It's okay, I love myself. As I am, where I am, that doesn't mean I'm not going to improve. And if we could say to ourselves, I'm okay, you're okay. Let's say that right now. That means whoever you're thinking about right now, they're okay. Yeah, but they'd be better if only. Oh, don't put that PS on top of it. You know? Don't do that. I'm okay, you're okay. Because sometimes we say, you're okay and I'm not okay. And they say, well, you're okay. No, I'm not okay. Don't get into that. Get into the realization what Emmett Fox wrote many, many years ago. And let me read this. Emmett Fox writes, there is no difficulty that enough love will not conquer. No disease that enough love will not heal. No door that enough love will not open. No gulf that enough love will not bridge. No wall that enough love will not throw down. And no mistake that enough love will not redeem. And he continues to write, it makes no difference how deeply seated may be the trouble, how hopeless the outlook, how muddled the tangle, how great the mistake. A sufficient realization of love will dissolve it all. If only we could love enough, we would be the happiest, most powerful being on earth. John Bradshaw, a prolific writer, talks about the shame and the guilt that we carry within ourselves. I want to wrap it up by saying to you this morning, and saying to myself, I don't care how you lived. I don't care what you did, what you thought. And I don't care what unfinished business that you had. There's something inside of you right now that doesn't see it and loves you. Loves you very, very much. What I'm asking you to do today is to have the courage to measure up to what God expects of you. To have the courage to forgive yourself. To have the courage to hold nothing against yourself. To have the courage to not be judgmental. To have the courage to forgive others. And to have the courage to express love. Have that courage. That's what Rollo May is talking about. And Albert Schweitzer hit the nail on the head. He says, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, he writes. It's a tragedy of life. To let something die in us while we are yet alive. I don't know what that does to you. But it wants me to live right now to the fullness of the Spirit. And not to hold back. Not to hold back. We can't. We have to love everybody. Can you picture the teacher group that was following him? Jesus may have stopped. Just a minute. Just a minute. Folks, you guys go over there. You guys go over there. You guys stay here. You guys come with me. You can't do that. You can't do that. You just can't do it. So I am standing here saying to you with all my heart and with all my mind, I love myself. Genuinely. I'm not talking about good looks, which I have. Well, I might as well start with that. No, I'm joking. No, but I'm talking about, I couldn't always say that. See, here's my point. I couldn't always say that. I would say, I love you, but, if and only, and but again. And I was butting against the wall. But to say it, I'm not perfect. I'm working on it, something better. But to actually say, I love you. And I love God. And I love life. And I love everybody in my experience. And I love people as they are. And God, work with me to love those that make it very difficult for me to love them. That's what you have to do. That's what you really have to do. The courage to love. God bless.